Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host Raghunath and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show and welcome to Walk On Wednesday, because it's Wednesday. And Wednesday is a day that we invite interesting people on for 5 or 10 minutes, pick their brain, hear about their interesting story. But before I start, I just realized this, that I came home from this weekend, and it's already 3 days in from the weekend, and I walked down the stairs to get wood for the fireplace. I was surprising my wife with a fire when she wakes up, and I found a big box in the basement, and the box was addressed to me, and I opened it up.
What was in the box?
The box was a gift from Darcy, one of our Zoomers.
Oh.
Now, you guys may think this is gross or tamasic, but I got a giant skull.
Oh.
I collect skulls. I collect bones and skulls. And she said she had a skull of an animal that died naturally, a bull.
They have the horns?
She shipped it to me. Wow. It's massive. It's like beastly. And some people are just like, some people think that's disgusting. I love skulls. They remind me of our temporality. I feel like I feel like it brings. I like skulls and I love I'm not a goth guy, but I like skulls and I like graveyards because they really make me think deep immediately. So I scatter them around my room. No, I'm just kidding. I have a special skull shelf. But thank you, Darcy. And anyway, today is Walk On Wednesday, Kaustubha, and guess who is our walk on? See, I never tell Kaustubha who it is. I surprise them. And today, it's our very own Nancy, Secret Nancy, we call her.
Secret Nancy. Okay.
Secret Nancy, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
She's our longtime listener, and she doesn't give her last name because she's anonymous, because she runs our 12-step Bhakti recovery group. How long have you been listening to the show, Nancy?
Since early October of last year, when it was still the Super Soul Sangha.
Okay.
So I found out from Instagram, and it was right when my heart was looking for something deeper, and I was like, I don't know where to go, and all of a sudden it popped up, and I had never seen it before, and I plugged in, and I had missed maybe a couple since then.
Found it on Instagram.
Yep.
We got to go back to Instagram.
We're trying to do that. Mara's working on it, right?
Yeah.
How's that looking, Mara? Did you get any progress yesterday?
Not yesterday.
We don't know what we're doing.
A little pressure.
Can you tell us a little bit about your spiritual journey?
Sure. I grew up in a really great family, but I felt like I didn't have the owner's manual. Like everybody else knew what that they had to do in life. You know, I was the kid on the playground that didn't know where to go. I just sort of stood there waiting. And so what happened was that when I was about 12 or 13 years old, I found drugs and alcohol. And that's when I got my owner's manual. All of a sudden, I had the solution. of life. And
Wait a second. I wanted your spiritual journey.
I'm coming to it. But that's part of the spiritual journey, because if I hadn't hit bottom when I was about finally, when I was 26 years old, I was in graduate school, and I just said, "Uncle," and that's when I got clean and sober, and it's been 38 years now. So
Wow.
I'm an old Wisdom of the Sages groupie, but for years, I've worked in the 12-step recovery for a lot of years. I've done the 12 steps, and I had a very deep spiritual part of my program where I would study. And I'd try to seek things out. So I would be reading different books like Jack Kornfield or
Sure.
Emmett Fox, and I try to with small groups, trying to improve my prayer meditation. And then one day, about 7 years ago, I saw a little notice up on a board in a local yoga studio that the director of Hindu Life at Princeton University, Vineet Chander, was giving classes on the Bhagavad Gita. And I said, I've heard about that book. I wonder what that's all about. And that really started my deep dive into Krishna consciousness, because when we started reading, all of a sudden, at 7:8 is the verse that really grabbed me, which is, I'm the taste of water, the radiance of the sun and the moon. All of a sudden, everything I had been thinking about a higher power for all those years in recovery sort of just went bloop. It just melded. And I said, oh, I found my higher power. And so I was going along studying the Bhagavad Gita for quite some time. I'd come into the Bhakti Center. I don't think the Kaustubha remembers.
I do remember when I used to have the shloka classes, right, on Sunday mornings.
And with my friend John, and the two
That's
of
right.
us, him and trying to follow along. But it was really, really a pull, rather than this attraction came. And I then went to India with Rukmini and Gauravani 3 years ago. And that journey made me realize that the most important thing in my life is to dive into Krishna consciousness, but to also work with people in recovery. That it wasn't like, let me go off in a cage, I'm fine. A cave. Let me go in a cage. Well, I could do that too. But let me just go off. I have to dive closer into this. And so I have people that I work with locally that still go to a lot of AA and NA meetings here, but we have, and I was not the one that started this Bhakti recovery. I've got to props out to Jiva G, who really was the person who started the Bhakti recovery group. And we also have Ed now that's doing this. And so this is a merging of 12-step recovery from all different 12 steps with adult children of alcoholics, OA, sex addicts, GA, Gambling Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, and coming to a common language through Krishna consciousness.
Can you explain that the manifestation of an addiction, gambling, drinking, narcotics, etc., they're symptoms of a greater emptiness, which is a deeper disconnect in the heart? Would you say that's correct?
Absolutely. I think that there's a phrase that once we take the first drink, we take it, and the second drink takes us. And that's the same with the first narcotic, whatever. So that if we are truly addicts, we don't have a choice of what we do until we're first physically removed from the alcohol or the drugs or whatever. Because if it's a drug addiction or alcohol addiction, there's a physical component. I have a compulsion. If I put a drink in my body, I need to drink more. It's just the way it is. You might take a drink and say, okay, I'm going to go to sleep. I take a drink. I'm going to New York City. So I have to get away from the physical part. Then there's the mental part of the obsession that, I have to. And so there's a threefold illness, disease, allergy that we have. And the last and most important that we have to do is fill that spiritual hole that we have had growing because of our addiction, because the addict hates themselves more than anybody around them hates them.
Wow. It
So-
almost seems that, thank God, that your mind is sort of dialed in this way. Because if you do drink, and even drink a lot, and even can function and have a business and drink,
Yeah.
it cheats you out of a chance to really become miserable, which is your trampoline to your spiritual life,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And
I feel bad. I feel bad for people who are just like, they're dysfunctional in a lot of ways, internally and internally a little sad, but not broken enough to do something about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. And I think that if you are broken by some sort of addiction and you really say uncle, it's that act of Arjuna throwing down his bow is like, yup, got it. I have no doubt what that is about, because that is truly what has to happen. Now teach me, Krishna, I'm yours.
That's another. You should steal that. You should steal that instead of saying uncle, throwing down your bow. I'm throwing down my bow. That could be a new for surrendering.
We absolutely. And the community that we have right now, we have 6 meetings a week. So we have, and they're all different. So that we have on Saturday, we are doing steps 1, 2, 3 over and over again. So that I did them the first time doing out of what is known as the book, the 12 and 12. Then Jiva G's doing them now out of a combination of literature. We're going to be doing step 1, 2, 3 out of the NA book next. Well, so we're going to change it up on Saturdays. Sundays we do one of the 108 important passages or texts from the Bhagavad Gita, and we relate it to recovery. Monday we do, Ed does, as Bill sees it, as Prabhupada says it. So we take the daily Prabhupada quote and merge it with something called readings from As Bill Sees It, Bill Wilson. Then Wednesday we do Nectar of Devotion, and we read Nectar of Devotion. And then Thursday I do half reading the big book from cover to cover, and then half of the Bhagavad Gita. We do it at the same time. And then
Okay, so I apologize. I want to say, for those who aren't familiar with this, I just want to demystify it. Sometimes people feel like, can I go? I don't think I'm addicted to anything. Are they welcome, or do you need to go there and prove you're an addict somehow?
Not at all.
Not at all. Okay.
Everybody's welcome, and no one has to identify as being an addict. That if they don't want to, they don't have to share. They can just be present. But we have a lot of people that do that, and it's really the 12 steps are a way of living, and I think it's useful for anybody, regardless of whether they have an addiction. So people can come and go as they please. We have a core group of people that sort of like, if somebody's not feeling it, the rest of us, all of a sudden our heart is given over to a new group of people. And so during COVID, we've blossomed.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Another question: what if people do have a problem or are just not ready to share publicly within a group? Is that a problem? Is it like, am I going to have to reveal all my dark secrets? I know that it's healthy to do that, and and it's sort of encouraged to work with, a sponsor. But if people are intimidated, can you share anything about that? What are these meetings like in that regard?
Well, we have a lot of people who have a lot of experience, so that already there's been, I can think of 3 different people who have approached either Jiva or myself and said, I need sponsorship, and we'll connect them one-on-one. They're not in the group setting, so that they're offline, and we connect them and try to work with them separately to help them. So that we have a lot of people that are willing to act as temporary sponsors, and we can connect them up. So if people say, I don't know what I need, but I need to talk one-on-one, we absolutely have a whole wealth of people that are willing to do that.
So nobody has to share publicly. They can still come to the meeting, and they can just clam up and listen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's kept privately.
Yeah.
You know
Absolutely.
what? I just want you to know, me and Kaustubha and Mary, we both really, really appreciate what you're doing. It goes hand in hand with bhakti, is working through our garbage, picking through our garbage, like that analogy,
Yeah, yeah,
picking
yeah.
through our garbage, and finding these deep origins of trauma, pain, hurt that become manifest in dysfunctional living, and then trying to fit some type of toxic beverage, drug, etc., in our God-shaped hole where only God will fill. And it's so beautiful, and it's such a like important part of what I see as Krishna consciousness 2.0 in the New Age, and it's really, I think, revolutionary. And I'm so glad it's part of our program here. If you're listening out there and you're not that familiar with this, this is part of our Patreon group. You can join our Patreon. It's a donation-based way to support our platform. That's how we keep this thing going. You go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages, and then we'll hook you up with Nancy, and there's a whole inner group of people, as well as our yoga classes and yoga school that goes on through there. But Nancy and Jiva and Ed run this 12-step program, and we really think it's a great asset. So we really want to thank you for coming on this morning, my friend.
Thank you
Thank you,
so much
Nancy.
for
We
having
love
me.
you. We love you.
Yes.
Really wonderful thing, Kaustubha, isn't it?
It is indeed.
All right.
And
Shall we
there's a meeting
dive?
today, right? There's a meeting today, Nancy? Oh, she might have muted herself.
Yeah.
I think
Yes,
it's at
noontime today, and we have on Patreon, we have the Zoom ID. Yep.
okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
Oh,
Should we
sorry.
get-
No, it's not noon today. Sorry, everybody. It's 1 o'clock. Wednesday, it's 1 o'clock. I'm very sorry, everybody. 1 o'clock today.
No problem.
Perfect.
No problem. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati utamashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established in the heart as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Tamurandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurun Milatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Good morning, everybody. Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 8, text 8-ish.
No. No.
Not 8-ish? 4-ish?
Well, I guess if you count 6 is kind of 8-ish. Yeah. So
Yeah, 6 is 8-ish. Ish. I love that word ish.
It
I
just
use
makes
it all the
everything
time.
easier.
I can't believe we lived so long without ish.
Makes everything easier, doesn't it?
It's so bad. It's better. It's one of the good words we've added to the American
Lexicon.
vocabulary.
So, today's a special day, though, so we should mention it going into this, right?
Yes, today is the disappearance of our guru's guru. That's called the Param Guru. And not only that, but the Acharya, or the master, who did all these translations of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. And he basically created a renaissance of bhakti throughout the world.
He did.
It's quite unbelievable what he did in a very short time. So we want to pay a little tribute to Srila Prabhupada before we start. You want to say something, Kaustubha?
Well, I think we can do it as we go, because I think the commentary to the verse that we'll read today will naturally lend itself to us discussing his contribution.
All right. So we're in text 8?
No.
Text 6, I meant. Text 6-ish. A pure devotee of the Lord, whose heart has once been cleansed by the process of devotional service, never relinquishes the lotus feet of Krishna, for they fully satisfy him, as a traveler is satisfied at home after a troubled journey.
Yeah. So let's do this. I mentioned yesterday that these few verses here, text 4, 5, and 6, like, about a year and a half ago, these are really resonating with me, these verses.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is Maharaj Pariksit, who's asking the questions of Sukadeva Goswami. And he's about to lead into this. Basically, this whole chapter is just his questions. But this is going to lead into the lead into it. He's just enthusiastic. He's hearing from Sukadeva Goswami. He's just feeling this enthusiasm for hearing Bhagavatam. It's the effect of it. He's feeling it, and he just starts to glorify that process itself. Just what we do here every morning, right? We're just hearing Srimad-Bhagavatam.
Spiritual enthusiasm.
Yeah, it's important.
He's
feeling it.
Yeah.
And so I was just going to go back and read text 4 and 5 and then 6 again, and then let's read the commentary to 6, okay? So text 4 says, persons who hear Srimad-Bhagavatam regularly and are taking the matter very seriously will have the personality of God as Shri Krishna manifested in their hearts within a short time. Okay. Then text 5 says, the sound incarnation of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Soul, in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam, enters into the heart of a self-realized devotee, sits on the lotus flower of their loving relationship, and thus cleanses the dust of material association such as lust, anger, and hankering. Thus, it acts like autumnal rains upon pools of muddy water. Right? So just that you hear Bhagavatam, quickly Krishna becomes established in your heart, purifies your mind and your heart of all that material association like lust, anger, and hankering, just like autumnal rains. And then today's verse, a pure devotee of the Lord whose heart has once been cleansed by the process of devotional service, never relinquishes the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, for they fully satisfy him. How do they satisfy him? What's it like? What could we compare it to?
Autumnal rain.
No.
No.
That one worked in the last verse. They fully satisfy them as a traveler is satisfied at home after a troubled journey. Right.
Yeah.
So that hole that you're talking about filling or whatever, that you can see it in this way. They're returning home. Now this verse, when it says that the pure devotee of the Lord whose heart has once been cleansed by the process of devotion, so they never relinquish the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, right, which are there in the heart. Now, so let's look at the Sanskrit a little bit, right? It says Dauta Atma, a soul who's like been purified, been cleansed, whose heart has been cleansed. Purusha, a person whose heart has been cleansed. And then it says Krishna Pada Moolam. What does that mean, Raghu?
Krishna's feet, Krishna Pada Moolam.
What's Moolam? What?
Mooladhara chakra? That's all I'm thinking.
What about, that works. Or also, what do they call those radishes that they have in the big white radishes? What do they call that?
Daikon?
No, like in India, what do they call it?
No.
The mooli, right?
The moolies, yes. like they sell them on the street, yeah.
Yeah, so it's the root. It means the root.
The root chakra. There you go.
Yeah.
So he's taking Krishna's feet into the root or into the heart.
The way that I understand it, it's not there in the translation. It just says the padamulam, the shelter of the lotus feet. But those feet, in other words, Krishna is the root of all existence. So it's connecting to the root, just as a leaf, is nourished by the root of the tree. It's the root that's providing all the nourishment, the sustenance, and so on. So that when you reconnect to that root of all existence, Krishna, you could say the lotus feet of Krishna, right? You've reconnected to the root. So one who's been cleansed by reconnecting to that root, reconnecting to the very source of our existence, they feel it. They never give it up, right? And their miseries, the pariklesha, it says here, sarva pariklesha, you let go of all your miseries. You feel fully satisfied, that atma supersidity, as a traveler satisfied at home after a troubled journey. So we're all on our troubled journey in one way or another, right? And you got to reconnect with that root, reconnect with that home. Like E.T. wants to go home. What is it? E.T. phone home. It was phone home. You want to connect to your home,
Or Raghunath Swami, a journey home.
the journey home.
Journey
Stay
home. Let's stay with Raghunath Swami. Or, I mean, unless you
You don't
connect
like
with
ET?
ET, we can go there too.
Okay.
Yeah, but we're all on our journey home. Nancy's on her journey home. She told us about her journey home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and sometimes it starts like on this crazy journey, but in that craziness, we start to find start to find the cool relief of home. Our spiritual journeys are all very, very beautiful. They're all very unique, and they're almost like they're specially crafted for each and every one of us.
Now let's read the commentary, and Prabhupada's writing a commentary, but I think it applies to him very well.
The commentary to 6.
Yes.
You're ready. One who is not a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord is not completely cleansed in the heart, but a perfectly cleansed person never quits the devotional service of the Lord in discharging such devotional service as ordered by Brahmaji to Narada in the preaching of Srimad-Bhagavatam. Sometimes a representative of the Lord engaged in preaching work meets various so-called difficulties.
Right.
You
Now,
say
this is
preaching-
something, when Prabhupada shares this is coming from his own personal experience, right? And we can talk about this.
Sure. This was, but truthfully, it's anybody on their spiritual path. Expect it. As a matter of fact, once you get on your spiritual path, expect obstacles. It's not like you're going to go down like a water slide, like whee. It'll be joyous, but expect difficulties to come in our way because those are our ways that we evolve. This was exhibited by Nityananda, Lord Nityananda, when he delivered 2 very fallen souls, Jagai and Madai. And similarly, Lord Jesus Christ was crucified by the non-believers. But such difficulties are very gladly suffered by the devotees in preaching because in such activities, although apparently very severe, the devotees of the Lord feel transcendental pleasure because the Lord is satisfied.
That's such an important point, right there.
Sure. Now, Prahlad Maharaj suffered greatly, but he still never forgot the lotus feet of the Lord. Prahlad was the son of the demon Hiranyakashipu, who was killed by the incarnation of the man-lion, Nrsimhadev. This is because a pure devotee of the Lord is so purified in heart that he cannot leave the shelter of Lord Krishna in any circumstance. There is no self-interest in such service. The progress of culturing knowledge by the jnanis or the bodily gymnastics of the yogis, are ultimately given up by the respective performers. But a devotee of the Lord, because they're saying they actually evolved past those things.
Well, they're a means to an end.
They're a means to an ends. But the pure devotees, like Narada and Nityananda Prabhu, take up the order of the spiritual master as the sustenance of life. They do not mind what becomes of the future of their lives. They take the matter very seriously as the order comes from the higher authority, from the representative of the Lord or from the Lord himself. The example set herein is very appropriate. A traveler leaves home to search for wealth in a far distant place, sometimes in the forest, and sometimes on the ocean, and sometimes on the hilltops. Certainly there are many troubles for the traveler where he is in such an unknown place, but all such troubles are at once mitigated as soon as the sense of his family affection is remembered. And as soon as he returns home, he forgets all such troubles on the way. A pure devotee of the Lord is exactly in a family tie with the Lord. And therefore, he is undeterred in discharging his duty in a full affectionate tie to the Lord. You know, I feel like that way sometimes if I'm out traveling or if I'm, in some random city, because I travel a lot, and then all of a sudden you see a temple somewhere, and you're like, oh my God, there's a temple right here. Or I remember there was a temple right by our hotel in New Delhi. Like we just walked down the street and there was like a little temple right there. We're like, oh, what? Or sometimes like I remember traveling through Europe when I just got into Bhakti and I was so desperately alone and I saw some devotees sitting and chanting and I was like, what? right? So
Yeah.
it's sort of like Krishna will place those little, it's almost like a little tease. He gives you a little tease. He throws something your way just to make it, just to give you a little relief in your burning heart. This is the amazing thing about this reciprocal relationship with Krishna, who is mad after his bhakta. You think you're in love with God or can feel connected? Krishna's more in love. He's just going to give you little clues to lead you right out of the material world, to give us a little bit of relief from the heat of the desert of material existence. All right, Kaustubhji, what do you got for us?
Well, everything in this commentary, when, being familiar with Srila Prabhupada and his history, you can see that he's talking about his own life experiences. He's talking about these historical figures like Nityananda and Prahlad and others. But you can see that he lived this himself. And we gather here every day to read a book that we would have never heard of if it wasn't for him as a 69, 70-year-old person getting on a boat, a cargo ship. He didn't fly to America. He took a cargo ship. He crossed, he went
Would
around.
you ever take a cargo ship anywhere?
And he took it from Calcutta all the way around South India, up, and then all the way.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
And what he endured on that journey, and then he endured 2 heart attacks on that journey. Now most people would have just said, "I'm going back." This wasn't a good idea. Everyone told me not to do this, and they were right. But he kept going, and then he arrived in New York City. He had no money. He didn't know anyone. He had a crate full of Srimad-Bhagavatams, right? He had the first canto translated. That's all he had.
I mean, by the way, if you don't know the story, this is like a Cinderella story of a person coming with absolutely nothing, gets on a cargo ship. Who gets on a cargo ship? Right? I wouldn't even want to tour a cargo ship. Well, to speak of getting on from India through the ocean, through waves and seasickness, and then show up. It's not like you're going to show up, oh, finally, you made it here. Come on, we got this cushy McMansion you can stay in. It was just sort of like, now what? Now what the heck am I supposed to do? Except this direct order from Guru to give the Bhagavatam to people of the world. That's it. That was his only comfort, really. There was nothing cushy waiting on the other side.
You said comfort, and which is a nice, but in right here he describes it, and this is really good the way you framed it. I think this fits right. And he says, pure devotees like Narada and Nityananda, they take up the order of the spiritual master as the sustenance of life, right? So he had no money there. He didn't know anybody. He arrives in New York. But that order, just like you're saying, was the sustenance of his life. So when he was a young man, when he was, I believe, 22, or maybe even a little younger.
22, I think he met the Guru.
He met his guru, yeah. And that meeting was, it was on the roof of a building in Calcutta, just as this Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, his guru, was about to speak. And he was kind of there reluctantly. A friend dragged him along to hear this sadhu speak. And he was kind of like, I've met so many sadhus, and, usually they're kind of disappointing, everybody's talking about how great they are, but then, you begin to see them relatively. And he said that he and his friend bowed down when they saw him, because that's the etiquette. You see a Swami, a sannyasi, you bow down. And even before they had gotten up from the ground, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, you're two, intelligent young men. You should take the teachings of Sri Chaitanya, the teachings of Bhakti, and you should share them, with the Western world, with the English-speaking world. He saw, okay, that's how, young, educated people that know how to speak English, that are familiar with Bhakti plus, you should take this to the world. So the moment, his very first words were this instruction that became the sustenance of his life. Over the next, 22, nearly 50 years, he was meditating on that order. And just before Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati passed away, which I think was in 33 or 38, something like that, he wrote to him Prabhupada wrote to his guru again, and he received that, saying, "How can I serve you?" And he gave him the same order, take this to the English-speaking world, to the Western world. And he just meditated. He meditated on that order for like 48 years or so before he was able to actually carry it out.
There's like an enigma here, though. If you don't have spiritual consciousness, you think like, what do we have to offer America? That is like America is going through like, that's right when we are going. That's like America's having a boom right after World War II. Everything seems on the up and up. It's successful in so many ways. What do we have? India. We're dominated by the British. There's famine. What do we have to offer anybody? We've got to get out of our own. We got to get out of our own way. We got to become liberated first from the British. In one sense, it doesn't make deep sense, and that was Prabhupada's argument too. Don't you think we should liberate ourselves from the British first?
And he was a follower of Gandhi as a young man in college and all that. So that was the idea.
And his guru just cut right through it and just said, listen, the really way you're going to help the world is got nothing to do with the political situation. The political situation will always change. But the teachings of Bhakti, they can be applicable anywhere. You could have a completely free nation where everybody's running free, but you could be a slave to your mind, a slave to your senses. I mean, that's what addiction is. It's a slave to your senses. Who cares if you're running naked on an island free, but you're a drug addict? So the freedom that comes from bhakti, it can be done in any condition, no matter what's going on. So he said, yeah, that's important, but the real important thing is this message, because this is what real liberation and real freedom is about. The waves of the material world will always go up and down. You'll have controlling governments. You'll have liberal governments. You'll be free. You'll be in prison. But this thing of bhakti will give you liberation even in the worst circumstances. And this was like, he went with this. It cut right through any sort of doubt. And Prabhupada took that to heart. And then he just sort of put that in his GPS. This is my life's mission.
Yeah. He said, Prabhupada later wrote, or he wrote in the introduction, I think it was in the introduction to the Bhagavatam, but he wrote of the relationship of the disciple with the guru. And he said this line that's, kind of like, I don't know, that this line is it's just a beautiful sentence, but he said that the guru, he lives forever by his divine instructions, and the follower lives with him. Right. So like that spiritual connection is maintained through the instruction. Mm. And he took that instruction as his life and soul. My guru told me repeatedly, I should take this message to the Western world. And so again, as a 70-year-old man, he managed to there was a woman who was like a Krishna devotee who owned a steamship company, like this cargo ship company. And so from her, he got a free ticket to just ride on the cargo ship. He had 2 heart attacks on the way, but rather than turn back, he kept going. And it's interesting for me because I'm just about to move, from the east side to the west side.
You're gonna go in a cargo ship?
I'm not gonna go on a cargo ship, but I'm gonna move to a place that is just around the corner from where Srila Prabhupada lived for a short time. And so when he first came to New York City, he found this teacher named Dr. Mishra at the time, who had a place, on the Upper West Side. And that, that's how swamis, like any swamis that were around, let's say in the 20th century, there's a few, not that many, but usually they catered to like a kind of posh element of society, right? Like
an affluent aristocracy who's interested in very worldly things.
Yeah, they were sometimes called like uptown swamis, right? Like
uptown swamis.
They were
uptown swami.
So Dr. Mishra, I think that was basically like kind of a senior, like older women that had some interest in occultism or spirituality or something like
Sure.
that. And so he had a place on Riverside Drive in 70-something Street. And Srila Prabhupada was staying there. You could imagine it's kind of like staying on someone's couch or something like that. They probably didn't have very good facility for him. He's an old man now. He's like 70 years old. He's got no money. He's just trying to get trying to get some traction. And living with this person who, his philosophy was like more like an impersonalist philosophy. And so what Srila Prabhupada was explaining about bhakti to the people that were coming there was different from what this person was saying. And he kind of got a little annoyed by it, apparently, So he kind of moved Prabhupada out to this building that's right around the corner. It's right around the corner from where I'm moving, which is, I think it's 100 West 72nd Street. It's on the corner of 72nd and Columbus Avenue. Now that's just like an office. Now he had a yoga studio in that building, and Prabhupada was just living in that yoga studio, right? And he's, just living in a paired yoga studio, again, as an old man,
Now he had the first canto translated of the Bhagavatam.
He did. He had 3 volumes of that. And he was continuing to work on his Bhagavad Gita right there. He wrote the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita there.
So it's in this short 11 period before he left this world. That how many books did he translate?
Well, he
write commentaries too.
Yeah, but let me just stay on this thread for a second. So he was living there, and eventually he kind of moved to just like an empty office in that building. Can you imagine? He's just there on the floor in an empty office, and he's writing his books, doing his translations, trying to connect with people somehow. And living in a very austere way. He probably had no bed or anything like that. He just had a typewriter and a recorder, and he was working on his books. And that room that he was staying in got burglarized. So he lost his typewriter, he lost his book, he lost a lot of his documents. It's like, Jesus, what am I going through here? It's like, I get 2 heart attacks here, and I got no money. I got no place to stay. I'm staying in bare office.
Uptown Swami kicked me out.
I'm getting Uptown Swami kicked me out. I got no, I got no money. I got all the work that I just done got stolen from me. I lost my equipment. He's writing back to his god brothers, to the people that were given the same order by the same guru, saying like, hey, we could do something here. I'm looking at this place. We could, you guys all have a lot of money. You have a whole institution over here. I'm ready to sacrifice my life for it. Can you help me out a little bit? No, no help, totally on its own. And, there's a really cool, in the biography of Srila Prabhupada, there's this segment where it describes him living in that building at that time. And just, you can give a picture of his life, like where he was at. And there's this, but also his inner meditation and the kind of confidence that he had, the kind of faith that he had. And there's a section from his biography that says, in his solitary wanderings in Manhattan, Bhaktivedanta Swami made acquaintances with a number of local people. There was Mr. Rubin, a Turkish Jew who worked as a subway conductor. Mr. Rubin met Bhaktivedanta Swami on a park bench, and being a sociable fellow and a world traveler, sat and talked with the Indian holy man. Yes, I don't know exactly where this was, but I'd imagine it was probably right at that 72nd Street entrance to Central Park. It was just like a block away from where Prabhupada lived. So this is coming from Mr. Rubin, just this random person that he just kind of met in the park. And Mr. Rubin says, he seemed to know that he would have temples filled with devotees. He would look out and say, I'm not a poor man, I'm rich, right? He had nothing, right? He had absolutely nothing. He has no family at this point in his life, right? He has no money. He says, I'm not a poor man, I'm rich. There are temples and books, they're existing. They are there, but time is separating us from them. He always mentioned we and spoke about the one who sent him, his spiritual master. He didn't know people at the time, but he said, I am never alone. He always looked like a lonely man to me. That's what made me think of him as like a holy man, Elijah, who always went out alone. I don't believe he had any followers. It was just He was just there with no money, not knowing anyone, rejected by this, kind of rejected by this other spiritual teacher, living in a bare room, being burglarized, just trying to make some connection, but with his faith in his heart and this absolute conviction that if I just follow the order of my guru, that wonderful things will happen. I'll be able to be a servant in something very wonderful taking place. And he sees it all in his mind. And so that's, that was who Srila Prabhupada was. He was this, the faith and the courage that he had, the effort that he was constantly putting in, to write these books, and again, he would wake up, at midnight at 12:30 and for hours, just do these translations that we're reading today, translations and commentaries that become, we just read these verses just a little bit earlier, how when one hears Bhagavatam, how, it's, again, persons who hear Srimad-Bhagavatam regularly and are always taking the matter very seriously will have the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, manifested in their hearts within a short time. And Krishna enters and sits on the lotus flower of your loving relationship, and lust and anger and hankering, you become free of them. He was just trying to deliver that message. No one else was doing it. He was making it he was completely sacrificing his life to make that happen.
For our listeners, I think it's a great day to really meditate how one person's sincere focus to please the guru, right? One person, he's very seriously focused to please the guru, and somehow it ended up right on our laps. And if it wasn't for that one person, this is a real time to cultivate that gratitude. Thank God. Thank you. Thanks. And a lot of times people get into it and they complain. I'm not interested in. I'm interested in spirituality, not religion. I'm not interested in institutions. And we get that. I mean, I don't like it either. But I have an appreciation, because as dysfunctional as things may become, like for example, a marriage, whenever you bring two people together, even two, what to speak of thousands, there's going to be problems. It's not like it's sweet all the time, right? That's part of any relationship. Then you bring a third person in, isn't it? That's the problem with organization of anything. But that's part, I think it's a good time to even talk about that. But this idea of coming together and creating a society where we really want to propagate transcendental literature, which can actually change us. If it wasn't for that institution, that church, so to speak, I mean, I don't really, in one sense, I live in the woods. I haven't really lived in an ashram since I was in my 20s. But because there was that focus that he had, put these books together, create ashrams all over the world, my life has changed forever. My students' lives will be changed then. My children's lives will be changed. And sort of you create this domino effect of a positive, if not a spiritually surcharged ripple effect going out to the world, just because one person's very focused on their spiritual life. And we can do the same thing. It's not just like we're on the receiving end of it. Now we're on the giving end of it as well. We're on the receiving. We're always got to be the receiver. We always have to be the student. And then we also have to be the giver. Exactly. And I'm looking at every face right now on Zoom, and I'm thinking, oh, wow. There's Mara, there's Lyra, there's Isabel, there's Jason. They have a little universe that they're going to go out to. And this is ricocheting off, starting from one person focused, from his guru who was focused. And this is just a beautiful day to remember this trickling down of transcendental knowledge, and how if we can get a little focused without any leaks, right? I leak a little, Kaustubha. I leak a little.
Me too.
I leak a little. I'm trying to tighten up, but I leak it out there, But we tie it in, and we can be able to give so much. So I'm appreciating organized spiritual practices, because sometimes people have a good message and then they meet a few people and then it just goes into nowhere. But thank God, he was really focused in actually putting together ashrams, temples, book publishing, publishing books. Thank God for that.
Yeah, we should. And I just love this point in the commentary that we read today, where he describes that if you take up that mission, he took up the order of his guru, which basically meant like trying to share this message. And he said, when you try to do that, you can expect difficulties are going to come. And he passed through severe difficulties, and he writes this, but such difficulties are very gladly suffered by the devotees in preaching, because in such activities, although apparently very severe, the devotees of the Lord feel transcendental pleasure because the Lord is satisfied. And this is the results of true, genuine yoga, right? That the externals no longer affect you. And the genuine feeling of connection that you have with that root of all existence, you feel that because God's satisfied, I feel satisfied. It doesn't matter what's happening externally. And that's how we pass over all the difficulties in life. It's that kind of grace, it's that kind of connection that the true Bhakti-yogi is feeling at every moment. And he became, he wasn't just we use this, he's using the word preacher, preaching, which, it has different kind of connotations for us, but what it meant was like sharing to him. And this is the consciousness of one, that's that type of sharer, right? That like, whatever difficulties I go through, I accept them happily. I feel joy in it because I feel this genuine connection. And so therefore, as when he writes that, the guru lives forever by his divine instructions and the follower lives with him. He was living that. He was, as that person Reuben said, he was saying, I'm never alone. He was totally alone, right? He was saying, I'm never feeling alone. And so it's especially, through these books, through these meditations that he had every night, in the middle of the night, alone, connecting to God within his own heart, sharing that through his mouth, through a dictaphone, that would later be transcribed and edited and made into these books. We can associate with him, feel his connection, live with him, through these divine instructions.
Yeah, there's gonna be troubles. I mean, just even organizing an ashram or a temple, you're like setting yourself up for troubles, But thank God they were there with all its problems. There's always gonna be problems. With all its problems, thank God, because somehow you and me just found out about this in our 20s, and it changed our whole life. It's
we're out of time, Raghu. I don't know if you realize that.
I didn't realize that. Man, that went quick. By the way, we don't get a kickback from we don't get 10% from the Hare Krishna movement here. We want people to take this wherever they're at and apply it to their life so they can get some deep nourishment, fulfillment, connection, any way they like. We're not attached to how people apply this to their to the way they live. I'm lost. I can't find my outro music. Quick, say something, Kaustubha, quick.
Well, I was leading up to I was speaking. I was figured that you were taking that time to line it up, but
nah, I was just looking at the chat board.
I set you up once already, but
I was just looking at the chats.
You're on your own.
There we go. Whew. Thank you, Jai Prabhupada. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. We're so grateful today. Today is my day of gratitude towards the disciplic succession and Srila Prabhupada, who's made my life have some significance because I get to contribute to something I feel worthy. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We've got a lot of people out there listen every day. I want to say this thing works. I did Sweet Baby Krishna last night. I went to bed after Sweet Baby Krishna. I woke up. I'm getting sandwiched in. All I can do is hear about Krishna all day. There's accountability. That's what's so powerful about this group. You got to show up. Matter of fact, you should have some spiritual accountability. I'm forced to do this. Every morning, I'm forced to do this. I'm forced to hear the Srimad-Bhagavatam. Or else Kaustubha would get angry with me.
Very angry.
I didn't show up. So it's good to have, that's what friendship is. It's a spiritual accountability to dive on in. Thanks, everybody. If you like something that was said today, write it down. Take a little screenshot of it, post it, tag us. We'll send it out. Let's make this wisdom go viral. What do you say about that, Kaustubha?
You're stealing that one, but it's a
I
good
stole it
one.
from Jay Shetty.
That's right.
Yes, it's dancing time.